Hello and welcome to my new series, Hancock's Half-Truths. So, Matt Hancock has published his diary from during the pandemic, serialised in the Daily Mail. And first of all, I don't really know what this is. Like, is he really suggesting that he was writing a daily diary each day, like, dear diary, I work like did he really write down a diary? And if so, like, it's weird because it doesn't really contain like the things you would write in a diary, like had a nice lunch with a friend, or like, do you know what I mean? It's just the stuff that seems to relate to the pandemic or whatever. It has to have been reconstructed after the event, and then it's quite weird after the event to go, oh, like, let's assume that 2 weeks before the first cases got to the UK, I said I expect they'll be here in two. Like, it doesn't make any sense to like reconstruct it. It's just obvious bullcrap. And I'm going to read it so we can see how much bullcrap he can push out, because it's an indicator of how stupid he thinks we are and how stupid the Tories in general think we are. So here we are. Wednesday, January 1st, 2020. Standing in my kitchen in Suffolk after a quiet New Year's Eve, I scanned my newspaper for clues as to what might be lurking around the corner. The only thing on my patch was a News in Brief story about a mystery pneumonia outbreak in China. There were enough people in hospital for Beijing to have put out an alert. It reminded me a bit of SARS, brackets, severe acute respiratory syndrome. You know, because you would write that. You would explain what the acronym stood for in your handwritten personal diary. Reminded me a bit of SARS back in 2003, which killed hundreds, mainly in China and Hong Kong. I asked my private office to put together a briefing and made a mental note to raise it when I got back. Sunday, January the 5th. There are now 59 cases in China. 7 of these patients are seriously ill with breathing problems. That's the entire entry. Do you really think? Tuesday, January the 7th. I found the PM in the voting lobby, looking like he'd had a good Christmas and revelling in all the congratulatory backslaps from colleagues. We walked through the lobby together, and I told him about the new disease. You keep an eye on it, he said breezily. It will probably go away like all the others. In more trivial news, a picture of my Union Jack socks has somehow gone viral after I was pictured on my way into cabinet yesterday. My old university friend and communications specialist, Gina Coladangelo, was not particularly impressed. She thinks they're a bit UKIP. He's like sowing the seeds of the romance story that is going to weave its way through the story of how he let hundreds of thousands of people die unnecessarily and treated us all like bloody idiots while handing money to his mates and acting in the most corrupt and horrendous way and ignoring the rules himself. Yeah, but, you know, we'll need a sort of romantic love story to sort of threaded through that. And it starts with her saying that she doesn't like his socks. Good old Gina. The first Saturday, January the 11th. First death from the virus in China. At least the first one they've told us about. All right, casting suspicion at the Chinese government in the middle of telling a load of lies about his own role in government. Friday, January 17th. When I got into the department, Chris Whitty, whom I appointed Chief Medical Officer last year and who is known informally as the Prof, asked for a word. Calmly, in his ultra-reasonable way, he explained that he thinks the virus has a 50-50 chance of escaping China. If it gets out of China in a big way, he says a very large number of people will die. Wednesday, January 22nd. I found out tonight that Sir Mark Sedwill, Cabinet Secretary and Head of the Civil Service, is blocking my push for a meeting of Cobra. Infuriating. I mean, he didn't mention in his diary when he asked for a meeting of Cobra or any of that stuff. But he just like names the person he wants to grass up. You know, I wanted to have an important emergency meeting, but let's be clear, Mark Sedwill, who hasn't sent me a Christmas card since 2004, Thursday, January the 23rd. Number 10 has grudgingly agreed to let me make a statement to the Commons about the virus. Number 10 are still saying calling Cobra would be alarmist. Oh, what utter rubbish. I mean, it's very badly written to start both sentences with number 10. But regardless, like the whole point of calling a Cobra meeting is if there's something serious going on. And he said several days earlier, in fact weeks earlier, that loads and loads of people could die. Right, Friday, January 24th. Dominic Cummings, brackets, the PM's chief advisor, because that's how you write diaries. Like, if it was his actual diary, he'd write Dom, wouldn't he? Because he obviously knows the guy and probably likes being tied up by him. Dominic Cummings thinks COVID is a distraction from our official withdrawal from the EU next week. That's all he wants Boris talking about. But, like, why is this about communications? This should be about can we save lives? Saturday, January 25th. We need to withdraw Brits from Wuhan. I try to raise these points with the Foreign Office, but I'm told in no uncertain terms that travel advice is a matter for them, and that because of the time difference, their team in Wuhan are asleep. So I called, brackets, Foreign Secretary, Dom Raab. Oh, apparently it's not Dominic Raab, it is Dom Raab. Oh, he does get the nickname. He is happy to order the evacuation. Sunday, January 26th. The Foreign Office machine is struggling to grind into second gear. I mean, it's weird that Matt Hancock's own diary just admits that they don't run government very well and it's not being done very efficiently. This morning I discovered that officials are still not working up advice on whether to evacuate. Are still working up advice on whether to evacuate and not how, when Raab has already made the decision. He's like admitting that they don't really have things set up. Monday, January 27th. Coronavirus is now the first thing I think about when I wake up and the last thing I think about when I go to bed. Firstly, that's the whole diary entry. And secondly, I'm sorry, Matt Hancock, but it's not. Like, it's massively not. It's breakfast, your knob, what itches, why you're still tired, whether you should hit the snooze button. Like, let's be honest, maybe it's Gina Colodangelo, but it is not. You're not genuinely, like, that's just like trying to sound concerned, isn't it? Tuesday, January the 28th. A proper oh shit meeting today. Gosh, I can't believe he swears in his personal diary. The whole team gathered in my office to go through the reasonable worst case scenario I've been requesting. There are about 30 people perching on every flat surface. Like, what flat surfaces are there in his office? Like the desk and the floor. In his characteristically understated way, sitting at the back, peeling a tangerine. We're loving the additional colour, aren't we? Chris Whitty quietly informed everyone that in the reasonable worst-case scenario, as many as 820,000 people in the UK may die. Like, so he's basically setting a really big number up so then he can go, I'm really pleased that I only killed a quarter of that number of people. The transmission is so high that almost everyone would catch it. The whole room froze. We were looking at a human catastrophe on a scale not seen here for a century. That's not really diary language, is it? You'd write, oh shit, we better do something about this. I asked what we needed to do to accelerate a vaccine. Professor Jonathan Van Tam said developing a vaccine normally takes 5 to 10 years, but there's a team in Oxford working on an Ebola project that can easily be switched to the new disease. I want it by Christmas, I said. Like, he's just writing this like it's the trailer for a Hollywood movie. We need a vaccine. I demand we have it by Christmas. Coming soon to a cinema near you, Matt Hancock will be played by... No one, because no actor wants their career destroyed in that way. They'll never sell another calendar. Wednesday, January the 29th. PMQs today was surreal. Not a single question on the virus. I stood by the speaker's chair thinking, every question you lot are asking will be rendered completely irrelevant in a few weeks. Amazing how when you write a diary several years after the event, you look as though you were very forward thinking. At the time, I called the head of the World Health Organization and tried to persuade him for the second time to declare a public health international emergency. I will bet you any money that is a lie, right? Oh, come on. He rang up the head of the World Health Organization, was like, please, mate. The World Health Organization were the ones saying we need to do more. This is super serious. But China runs various projects in his private office, so he is scared stiff of upsetting them. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's a public health international emergency. These are just words. Like, if there's a problem, do something about it. This is like, I mean, he can't possibly have written this at the time because it's just not what diaries look like. No one writes a diary that looks like this. It contains absolute horse shit, suggesting that he was doing everything he could. And the weird little thing about his freaking girlfriend and his socks. The fact that he would publish this and think that anybody would be fooled is such an insult to us. There'll be another one of these coming up soon. Watch this space.